We're in the real show. Oh, there it is. Okay, I'm so happy to see you. This is so great. Rebecca Roth Gullo from the Gallows Group and Blackbird Donuts, all the things. I'm so glad that you're here for our very first interview in
Thanks,
our
Esther.
Women's History Month series.
Super excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
I know you're only here for me, and I really appreciate it. So thank you. But you and I talk about this stuff all the time. And so you were the first person I thought of. You're the perfect person, I think, because I come to you for advice, even when it's the tough love that I don't want to hear. I feel like we're on the same wavelength, like starting businesses and managing life and trying to grow the business. It's a lot. And so I want to share some of the advice that you've given to me and some of the things that you have done so successfully to grow your business. I think that's really valuable for people to hear. So first, tell us a little bit about all the things you do, how that came to be in the context of your industry.
Yep. So I've been in this industry. I started probably in 2004. Was when I pivoted from being in for-profit, nonprofit, classic business world, and I went to cooking school in New York City. And I never really expected to be in the restaurant business. I sure as heck never thought I'd be in the donut business or the bar business. And I moved to Boston and started cooking. So I started as a chef. Not actually, I've never been a chef. I started as a cook. I was a high-level cook, worked at a small restaurant in the South End. And it progressed into this job that enables you to do everything. You can be creative, you can be quant and qualitative. So it's got numbers, it's got creativity, it's got food, it's got drink, it's got all of these like hospitality things as well, which I think is critical. And so I sort of just kept working and was given an opportunity to work at a restaurant and partner with a guy in Newton and helped him open a restaurant with zero experience. I'd never waited a table in my life, and it just took off. And I'm where I am today, sort of, 17 years later, pre-COVID, with a big business, 6 donut shops, a commissary, 2 restaurants, over 200 employees. And now it's a very different story than it was a year ago, but we're still here.
It is crazy. And I think that a lot of people, I know this, and we've talked about this. It's crazy to think about all the things that you don't think about when you're starting a business, because it's not just about cooking. It's not just about making donuts or designing recipes, making beer. It's like there's so much more to it than that. So thinking back to when you decided to start the business, what is one thing you would tell yourself now that you have learned and wish you knew then?
I say this to everyone. The idea of being the restaurant business is not fun, and it's work. It's a real tough, wildly complicated industry. And people who think that they can cook and they like to entertain their friends, this is not the business for you, because the complexity is wild, and especially if you are service-based with lots of employees, that ends up taking up 90% of your time. Truly is managing employees from healthcare to emotional health to physical health to schedules, payroll, HR. That ends up being our job, is primarily our employees who we value and treasure and want to provide jobs to. So I think that is probably one of the misperceptions about the restaurant business. It's about food and drink, and it's not. It's about your employees. And if you have happy employees, if you have safe employees, if you have healthy employees, then you'll have a healthy business. If you don't, you won't.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. JC and I talked about that when we decided that we were going to take the leap to start Trillium. It was a specific question I asked. I said, do you want to be a brewer or do you want to own a brewery? Because those are two very different things. And obviously in restaurant hospitality, you need a lot of people to do the job. But from an organizational perspective, you can't do everything alone, as we know. When did you decide that it was time to expand your organization, kind of the infrastructure to support your business? What was the catalyst for taking that leap?
So I've always had a very small team. I keep the team tight. The actual like managing directors of my company are women at this point. Just happenstance that they're there, but we've run this company for the past, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years with 3 people who run
Wow.
our company. And we do it all. Now, I also have 12 lawyers, which you and I talk about a lot. We have lawyers for everything, which help us along the way. And then we also just have a great team outside of us to help support us. So it's from our insurance company to our contractor to our accountants. You and I talk about accounting issues constantly, to having phenomenal accountants, bankers. So it's not just the 3 of us who is Elena Tedesco, Susie, Dagenet, and I. We just happen to be the ones that are on that payroll, but we have a very good group. But I got to tell you, my main infrastructure is the infrastructure at home, which I know you and I talk about too. I mean, I have 2 young kids, 8 and 6. I have a husband, and we all are in this together. My husband does not work with me. We would never, it would not work if we did, but he sure is. What?
It's so easy.
I know that is. Well, I think that you guys also started it together, which is a different story because Steve and I did not start this together. Yeah. And it's he likes being on the other side of the bar, but you're making sure that you have a calm and supported home is critical to having the support at work.
Yeah, it's you're right. It's not just like the core team that is part of achieving everything you need to accomplish. We have talked about this, like several lawyers, accountants, creatives, like we have a number of vendors who work really closely with us as partners because they're the experts. And you might not need them on a day-to-day basis, but they're so critical for you making decisions and like helping you design strategy for moving forward. So that is huge. Actually, my background, as you know, is in business and I have a degree in finance, but an accountant was the first, or a bookkeeper was actually the first role we hired outside of production or front of house because I just like couldn't hold it all together. I couldn't do it all at one time and feel like I was doing it well. And I knew that there were other areas that needed my attention and I just had to, I finally had to have somebody else take responsibility for our accounting. So
agreed. You only have to be good at managing people. You don't have to be good at every single piece of this job. That would be just ridiculous to actually think that you could. What you have to do is to figure out how to talk to people fairly, how to treat people fairly, and how to delegate and hire people that are smarter than you and better than you. I mean, I sure as heck have much smarter people on my team than I am. But I just happen to be able to put some pieces together differently and they can do pieces differently. And we work very collaboratively. This is not a autocracy by any chance. And that's, you hire experts constantly.
Yeah, we are on the same page about that. I know the things that I am not good at. And JC and I, that was a jumping off point for us a few years ago. I took out this old business school model. Like everybody knows the SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Well, working with your husband, you don't necessarily want to point out each other's weaknesses. So we divided and conquered, like we made lists for each other of what are the things that we are interested in, that we are passionate about contributing, and what are the things that we think the other person does well. And then we look to close those gaps. And that helped us to really strengthen the organization. Because it was like, I'm not good at all these things. You're not good at all those things. But we definitely need that support. And there are people who are far better and will be like super excited to come help us and contribute in those areas. Okay. So one of the things that JC and I talk about as we expand and grow and get a little bit further removed from the day-to-day, how do you stay motivated and inspired when you're not as involved? So like you said, you've got a small team, but I know that you're Elena, like she runs the show, she's doing the day-to-day. So how do you kind of stay on the same page creatively moving forward and stay inspired yourself?
Yeah, so communication obviously is the clear part of this. We use, just like you guys use Slack, we use Basecamp, uh,
Mhm.
and constantly communicating, but it's not just the three of us, it's all the team. So it's the restaurants are on Basecamp for us, and we're constantly chatting. Blackbird's on Basecamp, Gallows Group, R&D, everything is in one directory for me to keep up and to get information. And then I connect with my groups as necessary on ideas, but I am not involved. Like I used to be involved, let's say, in donut flavors. I'm not really involved in that anymore. It saddens me that I'm not involved in it, but they don't really want me involved in it, which is fine. Like I get
Yeah.
it. It's actually a fun creative part for them to do, but my job has changed. I mean, my job is about growing the business. I am really, I would say that my personality is like the true entrepreneurial personality where
Mhm.
very macro. I have micro tendencies, but I think macro at this point. And so I can keep going because of new projects. I mean, that's really where my focus is. I am sort
Yeah.
of legal side and the future projects. And we just keep going. It's like if an opportunity comes up that's going to be interesting, we take it. It is not, and we figure out how to make it work. There isn't a lot of classic business school work that's done on our behalf because also it's just me. And I don't have to make a lot of those. I don't have to do performas. I don't have to do classic P&Ls. I don't have to do any of that stuff to get the next project going. I just have to see when and say, I'm going, I'm doing it.
So
Yes.
how do you ensure that everybody understands what your vision is, like your representation of hospitality? What kind of tactics do you use or strategies do you employ from recruitment through training to make sure that everybody maintains that original vision and consistency across all of the locations and brands?
Right. So that's a shared vision amongst our management team. And it's a
Hmm.
big part of the training that we do because so there are three people that start at the top, but then we have general managers, we have hospitality managers, we have assistant managers, and they all go through, I wouldn't say exhaustive, but I would say clear um, training. And the other thing that we just also always want to tell our staff is that we have your back first, and we're going to support you in the decisions that you make, and we're going to give you the education so you can make some sound decisions. But so there isn't insecurity in our job. No one's vying for your job. I think that happens in a lot of large organizations, that people are
Hmm.
constantly jockeying for the position. That's not how we work. We don't we don't want that insecurity amongst the staff. It's really counterproductive. And so with this shared sense of hospitality, it's saying, what can we do to keep our jobs happy and healthy and keep our guests happy and healthy? And it's really common sense. And if you have abusive guests, we don't stand for it. Like, we're not into
Yeah.
that. There are a lot
Yeah.
of people that think it's, guest is always right, and we don't think that.
Guests and vendors. I can remember, back in our early days, vendors treating some of our staff poorly, and it was just not acceptable to me. Like, I made some phone calls where I was like, you can talk to me however you want, and we'll resolve this together, but you cannot disrespect my staff that way. Like, you have to make sure that they, like you just said, you have to make sure everybody feels supported, and yeah, that you have their back. I
Yeah.
think that's the misconception about the restaurant industry. I think a lot of people think that it's like pretty cutthroat and very competitive, and there is that insecurity, but it doesn't have to be that way.
I think that that's the norm, which is the
Yeah.
unfortunate thing. I think that there's a lot of bullshit in our industry. I think that there's a lot of pettiness. I think that there's a lot of unnecessary competition. And there are some managers and senior people and owners who don't actually work in the restaurants or have any idea what it is, or investors who walk in and think sort of they're the BDOCs and can just walk in and sort of be assholes to the staff. And it's so unnecessary. And
Yeah.
it's also because so many people haven't worked in this industry, and so they treat people poorly. But like same thing with vendors. When we have a vendor who comes in, like the guys who do any deliveries, we always provide hospitality to them too. Like, do you need something to eat, a drink?
Yeah.
Not always that way though. I mean, of course things go awry, and we have staff that are super pissed with us and don't like us and don't like our technique, but that's just the way it is.
But that's just making sure that you're aligned in your values and your definition of those values. So we talk about that a lot. We've got some very clear core values at Trillium, and it's about communicating them, making sure that everybody not just understands them, but is on the same page, because you've got your own set of values that you should stand behind. And it might be that maybe they're not aligned, and that's totally fine.
Yeah. Well, I'm always telling people about my politics too, because I'm a very political human.
I know.
We don't need to get into that, but I am, and I fight for the rights of my employees. And I, probably at least half of my employees are not native born. And I fight for their rights super hard. And I explain to people that all are welcome to work here. Just know who I am from the get-go, so we can be clear about it.
Yeah, it's that communication. Tell me about a time for yourself that you felt insecure or felt in over your head.
Oh, COVID kicked my ass. I mean, big time. We had some pretty gnarly moments during COVID. We had some employee health stuff. We had some very, very, very bad moments. I mean, I look at my job, as I said to you from the beginning, my job is to support people and their families. Like, that's what I work for. I am not doing anything else than providing jobs. I mean, and that's what clearly this year has been about, because our revenue is down 50%. We're in the red. I mean, but I kept open to employ people. And that's the only thing. So when there was insecurity, when I had to close one of my restaurants, which was the Gallows, has been closed since March, I had to lay off 50 people who had been so unbelievably loyal and wonderful. And I felt horrible. I mean, and I still do. It's like, it's not about the Gallows, it's about the people who helped make it what it is. So that absolutely, that shook me to the core.
Yeah, I know, obviously you and I talked about that a lot at the time. Like, I was physically ill, like physically sick. And I'm the type of person that I've got backup plans for my backup plans. And this was maybe one of the first times that I just there's no backup plan, because you literally don't know what's coming next. Like, you can't plan for that. It was pretty terrifying.
Yeah. I mean, there was no rationality. I mean, that's part of the thing of being in a management position, is that you try to run things with rational thoughts.
Yeah.
And things that actually make sense. And when your business is shut down as a result of a pandemic, and because of wildly incompetent management from our deplorable 45th president, how can you do anything rational? I mean, you keep doing it. So we pivoted, I would say, 100 different times with what we were going to do. How are we going to support our staff? Everything. It was wild. I've never experienced anything like that in my life.
Same. Never. I don't think anybody has.
No. We're in good company.
Yeah. So we're going to pivot here. This is the part that we talked about. Like, I am leaning into it because it is just a reality. Like, we've talked about this, like, JC never gets asked about his gender or about his family life. But how, we talk about this a lot because it is a reality of being an entrepreneur in general. Like, how do you balance it all? So let's talk first about how do you think being a woman in your industry has impacted your experience? And then we'll kind of talk a little bit to wrap up about the balance of it all.
Yeah, sure. So I think it's utter bullshit that we are still, first of all, that we're even having a month to celebrate women drives me insane. It's like, how are we still here? Why is it still part of this discussion? Why is it? It just is mind blowing.
Yeah.
again. But I feel it and I see it every day. I mean, we have people who say, "Oh, you're so bitchy, you're so tough," and I just want to say to these guys, "Well, fuck yourself." Like, honestly, do my checks bounce? I mean, and that actually happened to me when I did the key fee for my last restaurant, where they said to me, "Wait, but you have a kid and another restaurant. How can you do this?" And I thought, I'm sorry, did the ink not dry on the check?
Yeah.
And I had
Why
to
are you
hide
asking me?
I had to hide my pregnancy in those discussions with those
Yeah.
because I didn't want to get involved. But we get it all the time. I mean, I have contractors, not the ones that I work with, but people like subs who will charge me more money because they don't think I know what I'm talking about when it talks about replacing coils in an HVAC machine or, dealing with beer taps and thinking that they're going to treat us differently. I mean, we get it constantly. It's sort of
Mhm.
annoying, but I think that enough people know us at this point, and they know who we are and how we work, and they either take it or they don't. But it's aggravating.
Yeah, it's unnecessary that it's part of the discussion. And while, so, this is something JC and I talk about too, because he doesn't necessarily he doesn't say, "Oh, you're only treating me this way because I'm a man." Like it's unspoken. It's like, it's not even referenced. So like, it is talked about when you're a woman. But he talks about having a family. Like, he talks about me. He talks about like his life outside of just being an executive a lot, because it's normal. Like, and we think it's actually like humanizing for people to connect on a level that is like, like, we take care of business, but let's respect each other for being human and for having stuff, like just having things going on outside of business. And I mean, everybody's unique, everybody's got personality, everybody's got feelings. So this is a question, actually. This is kind of my last official question, and we can take a couple of viewer questions, but this is a question that he proactively answers a lot, that we just naturally get asked a lot. So the context being, so Randy Zuckerberg, she defines what she calls the entrepreneur's dilemma. And it is truly an entrepreneur's dilemma, but essentially that you can only have 3 of these 5 things in life, and that being work, sleep, family, fitness, friends. Do you believe that? And if so, which do you prioritize?
I mean, I prioritize my family over everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's inclusive of everyone. I don't give a shit about exercise. Never been on my radar. And
I know. I'm trying. I keep trying.
Yeah, and friends are, I mean, I've had the friends for the most part for my whole life, and they understand what's going on, and my friends are busy too. So we support each other when we need to, and when we bounce, we bounce. But I mean, I don't think you can have it all, but I don't know why anyone would want it all either. I think that this is a misperception and also just another stress. Like, how about you just get done when you can get done and not have these really these expectations that are also unnecessary. Like, just do you, and how about let's not worry about someone whose brother is now the second richest person in the world. Like, just keep going.
Yeah, I want to feel that way, but I definitely feel like the struggle between like trying to balance it all, trying to get, because I enjoy all those things, because I love exercise. Yeah. Obviously, my family is the most important. Work and family for me are the top 2, because they're so intertwined and they support each other. Like, I can't have one without the other right now. And so, yes, we talk about family first, but like Trillium is now part of our family. But so
one thing though, there's an interesting differentiation. I think when you start to personalize the job for your employees by saying that they're family, I think it's actually not a great thing for employees, because it can keep them engaged in a sort of in a way that is very stressful, and it makes them feel like that they have an obligation to you that they should not have.
And that is a fair point.
It can be family for you and JC and your kids, but when you say it for your employees, unless they are owners of your business,
Yeah.
it is an unnecessary, and I think actually sort of a technique that ownership sometimes does that we should be careful of, because our employees should feel empowered to make decisions that are best for them. And sometimes you make decisions that are best for your family over yourself. And I learned that with other employees in the past, and now I don't do it.
So that's so funny that you say that, because JC literally makes that exact same point. And I think when I talk about family, like, I think I talk about it as in, like, you know, me and JC, like, we're clearly a family owned business. And I think of Trillium as it generally as something I have to take care of. And like you said, like, you take care of your employees. Like, it's not, I don't only think about just like keeping my children alive. I think about keeping Trillium alive as well. So I have a looser definition of family, but we have, like, we feel that we had that same growing pain as well. It's different when you are, you know, in the early days of like being on the ground and working with people together, it feels more like a family than it does when you're like hundreds of employees across multiple locations. So yeah, we've for sure seen that as a kind of a shift in language. But yeah, just in the context, it feels like one and the same sometimes. Okay, so we have a question here from Janet Bishop. So Janet asks, making the leap to starting a business is a big jump from working for somebody. What advice do you have for the courage to do so?
I think you have to have a very specific personality in order to do these types of things. And the personality is that I really don't look at things as being obstacles. I look at them as being opportunities. And I know that sounds like super cheesy, but like, just because something's complicated to me, first of all, I don't worry about it. I just do it. And I'm not someone who also like writes a list of all of the things that I have to do or that I have done. If I had to do that, I would become extremely overwhelmed with that list. So
Yeah.
I'm someone who just hustles. I constantly am hustling, trying a different angle, moving around. And the real thing is you have to have money to do this. You have to have financing, and you have to have enough to make mistakes. I think that a lot of people go into these businesses not understanding how much financing and correct financing matter. And if you are too short on your money, you will make mistakes anyway, and they could be they will ruin your business and potentially you. So you have to think very clearly whether or not you have the tolerance for it, and also high stress. Like, if you are someone who cannot manage high stress, this is not the job for you, because it is stress all day long, every day.
Very stressful day and night, 100%.
And it doesn't worry me. Like, that's the main thing. Right? There are days.
It's just part, like, you just own that. It's our responsibility to own that. What we did is, so talking about like the financing, making sure that you can do it. There are so many options. Well, there might not be that many options, but one of the things that JC and I did so that way we could start Trillium was we both kept our other jobs. Like, we kept working full time while we were starting the business. So that way we also had a backup plan. Like, that doesn't work for everybody, but we needed to be able to support our little family. Like, we had 2 tiny babies at the time and needed to make sure that we, like, if it didn't work out, that we had a way back into the industries that we were already comfortable with. So
yeah, great.
We've got a couple other questions here coming in. I'm gonna take another one. Okay, so from Derek G, what are you most excited about? I love this positive frame about returning to once we're past COVID, business related or otherwise.
Oh God, do you know what? I'm not even thinking about that. I know that sounds. I'm not. I'm thinking about tomorrow. Like, literally, I think very day to day still. I mean, obviously I have the vision for the next restaurants and where we're going and what we're doing, which is always in my background. But I mean, I think I'm just excited to see people back outside and feeling the immense pressure off of their shoulders for a little bit of time. I think that that's going to be exciting. And just to see someone with like a glass of daily servings or frosé or something just outside, just chilling, like that will be really nice too.
I can't wait until I am like out on the lawn at Fenway or in the beer garden. And like, I just can't wait to be back outside I know it's going to be a long time, but in our crowded spaces. Like, I love when I walk into the restaurant and my team's like, oh my God, I don't have a table for you. And I'm like, that's cool. Just hang out in the tap room. And like, it's elbow to elbow and it's loud. And I know we're pretty far off from that, but
yeah,
I can't wait. I can't wait.
I think we're a lot further off than people are. I think our leader, national leadership, or even states, or what's going on right now. I think it's a little. I'm not into it. I'm not into indoor dining at the moment. I think people need to be vaccinated. I think you and I have a ways to go before we start enjoying anything.
Oh yeah, yes. We obviously we are working on our reopening plans and our new opening plans, and it's a lot.
Brand new experiences. This is opening day for all new concepts, even though they're the same.
They're the same, but it's still different. It's like what we had to do before in adapting to stay open. We have to do that now to reopen.
Yeah.
So,
and we have to staff.
Yeah. Okay. So we have another question from Sarah Jacobs. Are there any examples of business leaders that either of you view as inspirations?
So early in my career, I really Danny Meyer's book "Setting the Table" was like just amazing to me.
Just got it for book club.
And I remember reading it. Came out right after we'd opened the Gallows and we had started doing work, and so I remember reading that book and thinking, "Oh my God, this guy knows what he's talking about."
Yeah.
He's obviously been someone. I think that. I know that this sounds like ridiculous, but my mother is one of these people that I look up to. She's 78 years old. She runs a private medical practice still to this day. She's been doing it since the late 60s. So I look up to her. She does all of her own bookkeeping. Like, she gets it together. So I look up, and really I look up to the ladies in my group. Like, I get lots of inspiration from my team. They keep me going. They hustle. It's big, but I don't follow a lot of other people just because I'm focused. I'm like myopic.
Yeah.
On what I'm doing now, but those are just a few.
Yeah. It is hard to pick your head up and look around and take the time to see what else is going on out there and what other people are doing. For me, one person that comes to, I wish I had had a mentor in life. That would have been amazing. And so I find pieces of experiences that I'll take from different people throughout the way. But one person actually who influenced me in our earliest days, I think we'd only been open for maybe a year and a half, Mariah Calgione, who was the co-owner of Dogfish Head with her husband, Sam. And now they are part of Boston Beer Company. Sam had come to visit us at one point he was in Boston, he came to Trillium, and it was really cool because this is when we were just in our tiny spot on Congress Street, and he took a tour. We were just showing him, the tour takes 30 seconds. And so he was like, "Oh, I can't wait to tell Mariah about this. This really brings me back." And I was like, "How cool that you've been in business with your wife for 20 plus years. And you still want to call her and be like, this is so cool." And I was like, how do you stay together? How'd you stay together? How'd you make this work? How did you be so successful together? And he made a joke about having bulletproof glass between their offices, but he was they were very gracious. And so she agreed to just chat with me and share advice. And so this total stranger in what could have been seen as a competitive business, she spent an hour and a half on the phone with me one day, just kind of talking about how they grew and how they worked together. And I thought that was so kind and so collaborative and so generous. It's influenced me as well. I had done this in my previous life in the business of fitness, but I want to be able to share experience with people. There's no big secret to our success. And so if I can help to influence other women or other entrepreneurs and encourage them to take the lead, that feels good to me. So So I think we have one final question here from Nicole. As you look back in your career, do you have any regrets? Would you do anything differently?
I don't really look like, I don't function that way. That's an interesting question, but I'm sure, I mean, I think that I make mistakes every single day in my job. I mean, every single day there are huge mistakes that are done. So, and they're not unbelievably notable just because that is part of the paradigm. The paradigm of being an entrepreneur is that you fuck up left and right.
Yeah.
And you make mistakes, but you pivot. So it's not that I regret things. It's that I learn from them very quickly and I make the mistake again. I mean, that is really clear, is that the mistakes are made over and sometimes over. But I did say, I mean, the one thing is that I think that you cannot, force your employees to be part of your family. I think that was a mistake that was made in the past, which we try not to do in the future. I think that you have to allow people to have the autonomy to make the best decision for themselves. And I don't want to do that much. I have employees that are wonderfully important to me, that know my family, that I care for, and I would do anything for them. I don't want to manipulate people like that. And I definitely had in the past, and they had with me too. I think also understanding that shit happens and people do stuff behind your back and not to take it personally is a really important thing to understand in this business.
That's so hard.
It happens all the time. It happens all the time. And to try to treat people fairly as much as you can, even though there are moments we definitely cannot. I mean, we are all quite human and we make mistakes a lot.
That's how I feel. I don't think like you, I don't really regret anything because it's got everything cumulatively has led to where we are right now. And so I have for sure made tons of mistakes, just like you. We make mistakes every single day. And I want my team to know that. I want my kids to know that. Like, you have to make mistakes to learn. And so I don't regret anything because I've learned from those mistakes. And I have definitely adapted and made changes and just kind of like, you know, really sometimes they've been catalysts for like moving forward or like taking the next step because you have to. I look for opportunity in things too. So when something goes wrong, whether it was by my design or by somebody else's, I need to learn from that. And I'm always looking for like how to shift, how to pivot. What is the opportunity from this? And it might just be an experience that I've now learned and kind of added to my repertoire. But, you know, just like one of the mistakes that I wish I corrected early or like I hadn't kept making for so long is actually in expanding our team. Like JC and I tried to do too much for too long by ourselves. And it was not good for us. It was not good for the business. It was not good for our team. And so, you know, similar to you, oh, I don't know. You're gone. Oh, hey. Similar to you, hiring people is like, it's a responsibility that we feel, like a very heavy responsibility to, like, somebody makes that commitment to us, we want to make a commitment to them. And so I wish I had like learned to trust earlier and bring people on earlier to support us. And I think it would have made things a little bit easier in part of our growth phase. So
I think the other one thing that I've learned that's been really clear is that when I am right, it means that some of the team is wrong. And I don't want that going on in my business. I hate that environment. I would much rather be the one who's in the wrong and have my team doing the right thing. Like, it doesn't, in the old days, I would want to be right. You know, I'd be the one to want to get it done quickly and figure it out and do all this stuff. And that means that shit is going wrong if you're the only one who gets it. So
high key personality.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that we went a little bit long here, so I appreciate that everybody was kind of sticking with us and was, you know, had some questions and excited to hear what we had to say. So I want to thank you, Rebecca, for hanging out with me today. So good to see you. And I can't wait to take a 10-mile walk around Boston with you again soon. But please follow Blackbird Donuts. And do you want to share all of your handles?
Okay.
We'll find you. Everybody will find you. If you had questions that we didn't get to, or if you have any questions for me, I will be live on Instagram for the next 30 minutes. If you want to DM me, or you can feel free to ask questions on LinkedIn. But otherwise, I hope we'll see you back here next week, Saturday, 2 p.m., same time, same website, when I'll talk to Veronica Armstrong from Ile de Nature. So thanks for joining us.
Am I supposed to follow you to Instagram?
What? No. You go do your thing. We're good. Peace. Bye.